Hello and welcome to the Farming Today podcast with me, Charlotte Smith. In this episode, the heatwave across Europe is bad news for milk supplies as farmers struggle to keep cows cool. But less milk could mean a better price for dairy farmers.
It's all looking positive, looking more positive. We need those volumes to tighten up in Europe, and then hopefully we will start to see prices really ramp up.
Let's start, though, in Wales, where later today the government will announce £1 billion for the agricultural budget over the next 3 years. The new Cabinet Minister for Rural Resilience and Sustainability, Plaid Cymru's Clear Griffith, says this will give farmers certainty, with £340 million a year for the Sustainable Farming Scheme until March 2030. The SFS was initially deeply unpopular and led to farmer protests. A reworked scheme was launched in January this year. Well, broadly, to get government money, farmers have to carry out 12 actions, from soil health improvements to online courses in sustainable farming. Applications closed in May, and it seems less than half of Welsh farmers have expressed an interest. I asked Professor Ian Donnison, head of the Institute of Biological, Environment and Rural Sciences at Aberystwyth University, about the thinking behind the scheme and the reasons for the slow uptake.
If you want all the benefits of the scheme, you clearly need, more farmers, more land area to be part of that. There's quite a bit of change, and there's fair degree of complexity, 12 different universal actions, and I guess it's going to be a combination of people thinking, can I make this work on my particular farm business? And I think some sectors in particular have found it probably a bit more challenging than others, really, in terms of how they can fit the scheme on their farm with their farm business type.
We've got 4 quite different approaches now around the UK. How does Wales compare with the other nations?
In terms of getting to the Sustainable Farming Scheme, I think has been sort of more collaborative in the way that it's been done, I think, than has been in England, and getting that balance right. I mean, the farming economy, number of livelihoods is much higher, a high degree of dependence in Wales. So I think the Welsh focus has been on also considering farming productivity and impact on communities and rural sort of culture. Behind a lot of it, of course, is one of the things that's sort of, I guess, fundamentally different is the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, which is an important piece of legislation in Wales. So the way that, again, the environmental, the economic and the cultural, as well as societal, are all important factors in terms of the way that Welsh government makes and implements its decisions.
We're off to the Royal Welsh Show later this week. Is this what farmers, are going to be talking about there, or are they, like the rest of us, talking about the heat?
Farmers will definitely be talking about the heat. On the west, we obviously tend to have more water, but we also have thinner soil, so they'll dry out often more rapidly. But there's a lot of differences even in Wales, and often between farms that are quite close together. So absolutely weather will be part of that. Again, there will be the input costs aspects. Obviously, fertilizer costs have been there, cost of fuel. But heat and climate is definitely, and moisture and lack of it is definitely a problem.
Professor Ian Donnison from Aberystwyth University. And as I say, we will be at the Royal Welsh Show this week, hearing from the Minister and some farmers. Andy Burnham moves into 10 Downing Street today as he becomes the UK's 59th Prime Minister and the 7th in 10 years. On Friday, he gave his first speech as Labour leader, promising to be a leader for all the UK, particularly areas he claimed had been badly served by the political and economic culture of the last 40 years.
4 decades of the neoliberalism that began in the 1980s have not been kind to the places that built our party, nor to the communities across the UK in rural and coastal areas. So we pledge today to them to be better.
The relationship between Sir Keir Starmer's government and the farming community soured over inheritance tax and England's stop-start sustainable farming incentive, while wildlife and landscape conservation groups were less than enamoured with a shift in emphasis away from protection and towards build, baby, build. So what's the one thing they want the new Prime Minister to make his priority?
I'm Craig Bennett. I'm Chief Executive of the Wildlife Trusts, and I'd love the new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, to recognise how important rural communities are as a key constituency and recognise how they've felt really buffeted over the recent years. I mean, one, being buffeted by the political changes, Brexit, inheritance tax and so on, but also buffeted by climatic extremes, flooding one minute for many months and then drought for many months the next, and who knows, we'll probably get flooding again. What we need right now is a Prime Minister that understands how important rural communities are, understand how we need to build resilience in our rural landscape, and that's climate resilience and economic resilience as well, and recognising how nature plays an absolute vital role in underpinning all of that. Without nature, without restoring nature at scale, we're never going to restore resilience in the wider countryside.
I'm Tom Bradshaw, President of the National Farmers Union. We need the Prime Minister to recognise the importance of food production for 28 million households, for 70 million people. That resilient food system should stand alongside defence and energy and really be prioritised. We can deliver growth in every constituency across the United Kingdom if the Prime Minister unlocks the opportunities for delivering that planning system, delivering the investment and rebuilding the resilience of our food system.
I'm Roger Mortlock and I'm Chief Executive of the Campaign to Protect Rural England. The thing I would like Andy Burnham to focus on first is to make devolution work for the countryside. We've had an administration that so far has been rural blind at best and place blind at worst. And I think there's a real window of opportunity to think about, instead of rolling out an urban model for devolution, how do we think about a model for devolution that really works for the countryside? Some of the things that the countryside and the rural issues often get caught up in is the gaps between government departments. So the rewiring of government that he's promising through Number 10 North and that join up across government departments, I think is especially welcome, especially in terms of land use, that he's going to inherit a job with an awful lot more on his plate. Whether that kind of community up, that place first, the good growth in every postcard will kind of have some tangible impact in a year or so, I think is yet to be seen.
Just a few things for Mr Burnham to be getting on with there, and we will, of course, keep you updated if and when we get a new Environment Secretary and or a Farming Minister. The Met Office says central England has now had the longest dry spell in 30 years. For farmers, the impacts range from an early harvest to less milk. Heatwave conditions are particularly testing for dairy cows and dairy farmers. Figures from the industry body, the AHDB, showed a 34 million litre reduction in milk arriving at processors in June this year, compared to the same time last year, with the record temperatures the main cause. The UK isn't alone in this. Drops in milk production in Germany and France are bringing one small glimmer of hope. There are signs that the long slump in prices brought about by a global oversupply is starting to reverse. Dairy market analyst Chris Walkland told me how current prices are stacking up against the cost of producing milk.
The assumed cost of production will be in excess of 40 pence a litre. The supermarket pools for the likes of Tesco and Sainsbury's, they pay about 45p. So milk prices for most will be between 30 and 35 pence now, but some will be getting well under 30 pence. So that shows the differential in the industry.
How real then are the glimmers of hope that those milk prices might be beginning to turn around?
Well, I think there are glimmers of hope because the market has responded to the lower milk volumes. However, we are turning from a very low base, and there is nothing on my price radar at the moment that would hit 40 pence for most farmers. Some will be paid, say, 38 pence from September, but that money won't be in their bank accounts until October.
And dairy farmers in many areas right now are seeing reduced yields from their cows and, of course, increased costs because of the heat. Will those increases in milk prices, when they eventually hit those bank accounts, be enough to offset the impacts of the hot weather?
I don't think they will, no. I think the volumes are tumbling pretty fast. That may influence the market and act as a catalyst. It's doing to a certain extent now, and some prices are lifting. But, as I said, I don't think it's going to make a significant difference to closing that cost of production just yet. It will help, but it won't close it.
What's the outlook then as we move through into the autumn and the winter?
Well, I think the outlook is better than it has been for a long time. Milk prices were never going to recover until milk volumes fell. It has to be in Europe as well, in France and Germany especially, because they are the dairy big guns in Europe. But volumes there are dropping in France even more severely than they are over here. If those European volumes continue to fall and ours do likewise, then I think we will see an upturn in the market, and that is already happening. Our cream price, for instance, has picked up to the mid £1.60s. It hasn't been there since last October. The spot milk price is about 45 to 47 pence. That means that some of the cheesemakers, instead of making cheese, are selling the milk that they get in. There will be less cheese to sell in 3, 4, 6 months. And again, that will help boost the selling price of the cheese. So it's all looking positive, looking more positive. We need those volumes to tighten up in Europe, and then hopefully we will start to see prices really ramp up in late Q4.
Chris Walkland there. And that's it from us. I'm Charlotte Smith. The producer is Sarah Swadling, and Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.